My friends, this is the end. Today is August 1st, 2023. And what is this the end of? Well, it's not the end of the podcast. It's not the end of these YouTube videos, but it is the end of me consistently doing it 5 times a week. Man, whew. For those of you guys that are brand new, tuning in, or maybe have recently subscribed, first off, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm truly grateful for that. But second, last year, right, around my birthday, which is August 14th, right? So last year, 2022, I made a commitment to myself, right? And I made a promise. And this is actually the second promise that I was actually able to stick with long term for a whole year, which I'm actually very, very proud of myself. And I'll talk about the first one here in a little bit. But I made a promise last year that I was going to, no ifs, ands, or buts, right? And I'm going to talk about what that actually means here in a second. Record 5 podcast episodes. And obviously, the podcast, the YouTube, it's pretty much the same thing. So it's a lot of work, right? In terms of like creating the content, thinking about the content. I don't know about you guys, but just imagine this. There's 52 weeks in a year, right? And you're constantly having to think, right, of terms of like, what should you talk about, right? You can't talk about just, hey, nutrition every single episode. You can't talk about just training every single episode. You can't talk about just mindset every single episode, right? And you have to learn how to get creative with it, right? But it's been a huge, long journey this past year, okay? There's been a lot of good. There's been some bad things as well, right? A huge roller coaster ride. I'm not going to get into all the details, right? But I want to get into specifically why I wanted to do this challenge, right? And I think it should really help motivate you for something that you want to go after in life to just kind of prove something to yourself, okay? So this is the second challenge that I gave myself where I was actually able to stick with it for a whole entire year. There was another challenge that I tried, which was playing chess every single day, and I failed at that. I still play from time to time, but not as often and not daily, right? And I truly do love chess. I'm not good at it, but eventually one day, more practice, the better I will get. Now, the first challenge that I was actually able to do and successfully do for a whole year, which is way back on, I don't even know if it's on my current YouTube channel, it might be on my previous one that I used to, own and operate. I did what's called squats over suicide. And that was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. For one particular reason, and I regret doing it, but at the same time was very proud of myself for doing it because I stuck with my word, okay? And that is something that I want to make sure that today's episode is the moral, right, of just the overall picture is sticking with what you say, right? I always like to say it like this. It's just like, how you do one thing is literally how you do everything, okay? So the first thing I did was called Squats Over Suicide, where I partnered up with a nonprofit organization called Life Act, which is a suicide awareness, nonprofit organization. And with me, right, battling with mental health, back from a very hard breakup way back in the day, I anytime I hear the word suicide or there's something about it or somebody struggled with suicidal thoughts, whatever, my heart pours out to them because I understand the struggles of being in a deep, dark void is hard, very, very hard. So I always pour my heart out to them, right? So I partnered up with Life Act. I told them, hey, I want to raise raise funds for awareness for suicide prevention. And I did this campaign, right? And if you ever go back on my Instagram, which is just the Joe Callari, I mean, it's probably impossible to get there because I literally post multiple times per day. But if you got the time, scroll all the way back. You'll see me with hair and you'll see me squatting every single day, right? Barbell back squats, goblet squats, everything like this, like squatting every single day. But it was literally like, I remember this. The whole year of, my wife being pregnant. So I was squatting, right, with just weights and then eventually squatting with holding my newborn son. It's pretty funny, right? But anyways, that year was hard because I had the worst back injury from deadlifting ever in my life. And just imagine this, like throwing your back out to where, I was in tears. I couldn't even like bend down to like, put my socks and shoes on, like horrible, horrible back pain. And that lasted for like 2 whole weeks before I can actually be kind of functional, semi-functional again. But I regret, I regret one, deadlifting and just letting my ego get the best of me. But I regret also continuing on with the squats because that had a very negative effect on me long term. And that's why I don't even squat anymore today because my back is fried. But regardless, I am proud of the fact that I stuck with it even through the pain. Like, I mean, literally like squatting, like even just, just body weight squats, horrible, horrible pain doing that, but I stuck with it. And I'm very proud because not many people can say, hey, I made a promise to myself saying I'm going to do this, commit to this every single day for an entire year. And I was actually able to stick with it and do it, So I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to do that, raise some funds for suicide prevention for a Life Act. Now, this was the second thing that I was able to complete. And that was, once again, creating a podcast, creating some content, right? Uploading it on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, the whole 9 yards, Monday through Friday, every single day for an entire year, August to August. And I'm very proud that I was able to do that. And if you guys have been with me from last year compared to where we're at right now, you've probably heard such a change, right? You've probably seen a change too, but heard such a change. And in terms of like how I started off the podcast, and I was always doing podcasts even before last August, but it's just got really, hot and heavy into the mix in terms of the content and the production and just, producing more because of this challenge, right? But you got to see such a transition from the type of things that I would talk about in the beginning to, basically in the middle of the year, the type of things I would kind of talk about, right? My tonality changed, right? My verbiage kind of changed, and then to where we are right now, right? Everything kind of changed, and I went through a huge, massive mindset shift, right? From where I was last year at 29 years old when I just turned 30 to where I am today, going to be turning 31 in the next 2 weeks on August 14th. Such a huge mindset shift, right? A lot of growing pains too. I'm not saying this was the best year by any means, but I'm a firm believer that anytime, God, the world throws you curveballs and obstacles, it is there to test you and only make you there stronger in the end. I went through lots of different, business roller coaster rides, right? Ups and downs, everything like that. But also blessing in disguise. And I'll talk about that here next, So for starters, where did I feel like, the transition of growth happened the most? It was definitely through the hard times. And I remember just specifically 2 of them, right, that I want to kind of share with you. For starters, one was, and this is why I absolutely love hardships, because as an entrepreneur, it's like you're kind of faced with reality, plain and simple, right? Like running a business is not easy. It's like taking care of a child and you're a single parent, right? It is tough, But regardless, the first obstacle that I had was I reached out to somebody that was going to do, so I wanted to basically redo my Heartletics, program overview, right? Basically, if anybody applied for a coaching program, they would be sent over a video going over actually all the details, right? In terms of how we help out our members. And so I reached out to, this team of people that was going to help do all the edits, right? Just make the video content, the B-roll clips, everything like that. So that happened, and I gave them the video, right, the raw footage, and they couldn't complete it. They said, hey, we're not going to do this, right? It's just too long of a project, whatever. And I wanted to done because I'm a big fan of success like speed. So sometimes I rush into things, and I was like, I want this done. Here's the deadline, right? They came back first saying they could, and then eventually saying they couldn't do it. So I said, well, I want to stick with my word and still have this deadline done. So I'm just going to learn how to do it. And I took a course on like iMovie, video editing, all that stuff. Got a new camera, everything like that. And hey, it turned out half decent, right? Where I can actually learn how to, make videos and edit it. And so it was a blessing in disguise because obviously I really wanted to have somebody and just delegate that task because it took a long, long time. And it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because I got to acquire the skills, right, of knowing how to do video editing. So now I do all the video editing, right? And that was the first learning curve, right? Or in terms of like growing pains, I should say. but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. From somebody from the outside in listening to this, you probably think that's so small. But as a business owner, when you're running a team, you're coaching clients, you're focusing on the podcast, you're focusing on the videos, you're focusing on all these social media content, email marketing, like there's a lot that goes into play. Like time is of the essence here each and every day in my life, right? Family balance as well, right? So just think about that, right? It was a huge thing that I feel very proud of knowing that I had to overcome. The second, and this was the biggest, adversity that I had to face in terms of like this past year with my business was the ads agency that I hired before. In the very beginning when I hired them, they were great. They were crushing it. Ads were doing great. Everything was great. Everything was going great, right? But I would say probably over the last, I don't know, maybe like a 6-month time span, I can just start to see that, ad spend is going up. But, the actual leads that's coming in and the qualified leads and the people that are signing up for our coaching was going down. So I'm like, oh man, what's going on here? We tried everything under the sun, right? Optimizing this, doing this. And then it came to a point where I'm just like, I'm wasting a lot of money and the ROI is not there, and I gave them a lot of lead time and everything like that. So I eventually had to just cut them off. And so once again, as a business owner and obviously there's organic outreach, which, we have the team of people that's doing that. There's word of mouth. We have the team of people that's doing that, right? But then think about it, right? Like, to reach out to more people, obviously, hey, spending money on ads, right? Advertisements, to reach out to other people, et cetera, grow the business, scale the business, et cetera, right? So in a time frame, we weren't running any ads, right? And as a business owner, that was scary because it's like, okay, well, hey, where are the new leads coming in from? And so I had to learn how to run my own ads, right? I had to learn how to do YouTube ads. That's where I got started off with running YouTube ads. And I got to take different courses and learn about it. And I had a blast. I kid you not. I had a blast learning about it. It was just a transition, right? Where I can acquire the skills, right? I already knew how to do all the video editing. So now I just had to learn how to make a specific ad, right? And then actually learn the demographics, the targeting, everything like that, right? And it was great, right? But then I eventually stumbled upon, Facebook ads as well. And that's what I was running before. And so I was like, okay, well, hey, the ads agency was running the Facebook ads before. Let me give it a whirl since now I feel a little bit more, confident, comfortable since I've been doing YouTube ads, start running Facebook ads. Next thing you know, like it's been great, right? And like the whole transition, right? It's great because now I, acquired the skills, the knowledge of learning how to do my own advertisements. But at the same time, it's like I'm saving a lot of money because now I'm not spending money on agency, And so it's good. It feels really, really good, And so why am I telling you this? Well, for starters, right, once again, this whole journey of the, podcast, recording these videos, 5 times a week for the whole past year, you've probably heard, if you've been keeping up, a big transition, right? And that big transition of the high and lows throughout the years throughout the past year has helped me out tremendously in terms of my own mindset. And here's the reason why, right? I want to share with you why whatever you do, you have to make sure that one, you say that you're going to do it, right? Plain and simple, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. You've probably heard me talk on several podcasts where I have no voice. I showed up literally with no voice, coughing up blood, right, in my lungs, still recording podcasts. When I was, sick and ill and injured, still recording podcasts. The days where I'm like, I don't feel like doing this, I still recorded a podcast regardless, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I made a commitment to myself. And you know what this has done in the past year by sticking to it? It has built up on the most important character trait that anybody can develop in their life, and that is discipline. That is discipline. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so many times people say that they're committed, but they lack discipline when times get hard. I dealt with hardships within my business this past year, hardships with my family this past year, hardships with my friends this past year, hardships with, life in general this past year. But regardless, I still showed up each and every day to the plate and recorded a podcast. All right, Monday through Friday, no ifs, ands, or buts. Travels, everything like that, whole 9 yards. I did not miss a beat. And I'm very proud of myself, right? Because I know for a fact that, hey, that was hard. Very, very hard. And I can look back and say, wow, this year has went by so fast. But regardless, I stuck with it. I gave it my all and I showed up each and every day. And here I am at the end of it. And I feel very proud of myself. So the moral of the story is this, okay? And why I just, share with you guys all that is when life is going to test you, when life is going to throw you curveballs, what is the commitment and promise that you have made to yourself? Because so many times, right, and obviously me being a health and fitness coach, I'm always going to relate this back to maybe you. Because obviously in 95% of the people that are watching my content and listening in, hey, you want to learn how to get in shape mentally and physically. So let's just play this around to where this can make more sense for you. What is the promise that you're making to yourself? Let that sink in. And honestly, think about that. Is that, starting a nutrition plan and sticking with it? Is that starting a workout regimen and sticking with it? Is that formulating better habits in your life and sticking with it? Even when you're not seeing the results that you want overnight? Even when you're struggling, you're feeling sick, you're feeling tired, even when you feel like throwing in the white towel and quitting and just giving up? What is the promise that you're making to yourself? And I feel like if you can commit to something, right, and actually hold true to it, regardless of how you feel, I always say this, successful people do what they have to do whether they feel like it or not. So regardless of how you feel, are you actually going to make that promise and that commitment to yourself and stay true to it? Because if you can't, we got some issues here. If you're a man listening to this, think about this. If you can't make a promise to yourself and stick to that, how can you make a promise to your spouse? How can you make a promise to your kids? How can you make a promise to your boss? It's like if you respect them and love them, why don't you respect and love yourself the same? And I personally love myself. And I like to say this all the time. I'm selfish. I put myself first before my family, myself first before my business, myself first before my friends, my coworkers, my clients, always. Because guess what? When I recharge my batteries and I can produce 210% power, the ones that I love the most, they get more of me. They get better results because I'm selfish. I'm putting myself first. So what is the promise? What is the promise that you're making for yourself? What is the commitment that you're making for yourself today? And actually something that you can stick with it. What is something that you can actually hold true and be disciplined with, through the good times and most importantly, through the bad times? It's just like working on a muscle. The muscle grows through the strength, through the adversity. And so many times, people, especially in today's society, are mentally weak and they don't even understand that. They just are so easy to quit and throw in the white towel. So remember, today's moral of the story is, hey, how you do one thing is how you do everything. What promise are you actually making to yourself? The next episode that you guys are going to listen to, I'm going to talk about just the progression of where, the podcast is going, where my YouTube page is going, because it's going to be a big shift, right? And I want to make sure that you guys definitely listen in, and that way you guys can understand and be updated with obviously what's coming next in terms of Heartletics. With that being said, I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace out, Girl Scouts.